Nanny heard the baby crying, but upon seeing what was on the bed, she immediately called the hospital. Sarah Mitchell ran desperately down the hallway upon hearing the inconsolable cries of little Ethan, whom she had been caring for over the past 3 months. The sound came from the master bedroom of the mansion in New York's Upper East Side, sharper and more distressing than anything she had ever heard from the 8-month-old baby. When she entered the room, her heart nearly stopped. The boy was in the center of the king-sized bed, crying desperately, but what sent her into a panic were the orange stains scattered across the white sheet. They were sticky stains, with a strange smell she couldn't identify. "My God, what is this?" murmured Sarah, picking up Ethan while observing the suspicious marks. The baby kept crying, his little face red from the effort. Sarah noticed there were remnants of the orange substance around his mouth. Without a second thought, she grabbed her phone and dialed the hospital. "Hello, St. Mary's Hospital. I need urgent help. I have an 8-month-old baby who might be poisoned. There are strange substances all over the bed, and he won't stop crying." The operator reassured her and said an ambulance would be on its way in minutes. Sarah wrapped Ethan in a clean blanket, grabbed her bag, and ran down the stairs, her navy blue uniform with white aprons swaying as she headed toward the gate. During the journey through New York traffic, Sarah held the baby's tiny hand, whispering words of comfort while trying to understand what could have happened. She had always been very careful with the boy's diet, strictly following the pediatrician Dr. Michael Roberts' instructions. At the hospital, the medical team acted quickly. Dr. Roberts, a man in his 50s with graying hair and glasses, examined Ethan thoroughly while Sarah explained the situation. "The stains were orange, doctor, sticky with a sweet smell. I've never seen anything like it before." "Did you bring a sample?" asked the doctor, examining the baby's mouth. Sarah showed the blanket with some remnants of the substance. The doctor carefully smelled it, and his expression shifted from concern to something she couldn't decipher. "Sarah, I need you to tell me exactly how your routine went today, from the moment you arrived until you found the baby." "I arrived at 7 in the morning as usual. Mr. Andrew had already left for work. Ethan was sleeping in his crib. I prepared the 9 o'clock bottle, and he drank it normally. Then we had lunch at 12, vegetable puree that I made myself. I put him down for a nap at 2 in the afternoon in his crib and went to organize the laundry." "And when did you find him in the couple's bed?" "Around 3:30. I heard the crying and ran. But doctor, how did he end up in his parents' bed? He can't even crawl properly yet." Dr. Sees. Roberts looked at Sarah with a thoughtful expression. There was something she didn't know, something important about that family. "Sarah, how long have you been working for Mr. Andrew Thompson?" 3 months, doctor. Since the accident." The doctor nodded slowly. He knew the Thompson family's story well. Jessica had died in a car accident when Ethan was just 5 months old, leaving Andrew devastated and completely lost about how to care for a baby alone. "I need to call Mr. Andrew," said Sarah, but the doctor interrupted her. "I already had someone contact him. He should be arriving any moment." While waiting for the test results, Sarah watched Ethan sleeping in the hospital crib. The crying had completely stopped after their arrival, as if he just needed medical attention to calm down. This left her even more confused about the whole situation. Andrew Thompson arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, his executive clothes wrinkled and his face marked with worry. At 35, he carried the weight of a recent loss that had completely transformed his life. "How is he?" "What happened?" she asked breathlessly, addressing the doctor first. "Mr. Andrew, I need to speak with you in private," said Dr. Roberts, signaling to a private office. Sarah stood by the crib, watching the conversation through the glass. She saw Andrew gesturing nervously while the doctor spoke in a low, serious tone. At one point, she saw the businessman cover his face with his hands, his shoulders trembling slightly. When they returned, Andrew avoided Sarah's gaze. His expression had changed from worry to something that seemed like shame mixed with relief. "Sarah," said Dr. Roberts, "the tests confirmed that Ethan is perfectly fine. The substances you found on the bed were remains of homemade food." "Homemade food? But doctor, I didn't prepare anything orange today. And how did he end up in the parents' bed?" Dr. Roberts looked at Andrew, who finally approached the crib and gently touched his son's little head. "Sarah, "I need to tell you something," said Andrew, his voice almost a whisper. I've been trying to give Ethan special food sometimes, when you go out for lunch or on weekends." "What kind of food, Mr. Andrew?" "Recipes that Jessica had written down. Special baby foods she wanted to make for Ethan when he grew up. I've been trying to prepare some." Sarah felt her heart tighten. She began to understand the delicate situation they were in. Andrew, grieving and inexperienced with babies, was secretly trying to create a connection with his son through the recipes left by his wife. "But how did Ethan end up in the bed, sir?" Andrew lowered his head even further. "I left work early today. I wanted to try giving him a new baby food I prepared last night. I took him to our bed because that's where I feel closest to Jessica." Dr. Roberts watched the scene with professional interest, noting the complex dynamics of that family trying to rebuild after a devastating loss. "But Ethan made a terrible mess, didn't he, Mr. Andrew?" said Sarah, trying to ease the tension. "Yes, he was spitting, throwing food everywhere. He ended up getting scared and crying a lot. I didn't know what to do, so I put him back in the crib and rushed off to a meeting. I didn't even clean the bed properly." The revelation explained everything, but created a new layer of complexity in the relationship between employer and nanny. Sarah realized that Andrew was facing far more difficulties than she had imagined. "Mr. Andrew, you could have told me. I could have helped with Mrs. Jessica's recipes." I didn't know how to talk about it. It's complicated, Sarah." Dr. Roberts intervened in the conversation. "Mr. Andrew, I'd like to suggest some follow-up sessions. Not just for Ethan, but for the whole family. What you're going through is more common than you think." "What kind of follow-up?" asked Andrew, suspicious. "Guidance on parental grief and developing the emotional bond between father and son. There are specialized professionals who can help you navigate this difficult period." Sarah watched Andrew internally struggle with the doctor's suggestion. She began to realize that there was much more going on in that house than a simple work relationship between nanny and employer. "Can I take Ethan home now?" asked Andrew. "Of course, but I'd like you to come back here next week for a routine checkup. And Sarah, I'd like to speak with you too about your observations as a caregiver." On the way back, Sarah drove the family car while Andrew held Ethan in the back seat. The silence in the vehicle was heavy, laden with revelations and unspoken questions. "Sarah," Andrew finally said, Do you think I'm a bad father?" The question caught her by surprise. She looked in the rearview mirror and saw a vulnerable man, very different from the successful executive she had met 3 months ago. "Mr. Andrew, I think you're trying in your own way. Losing your wife and having to raise a baby alone can't be easy." "I have no idea what I'm doing, Sarah. Sometimes I look at Ethan and only see Jessica. Other times I feel like he's a stranger in my own home." The confession left Sarah speechless. She parked in the mansion's garage and turned to face Andrew. "Do you want to learn? Because if you do, I can teach you what I know about taking care of babies." Andrew looked at his son sleeping in his arms. "You would do that even after everything that happened today?" "Of course, Mr. Andrew. That's what I'm here for." That night, after Andrew had retired to his room, Sarah stayed in the kitchen thinking about the conversation they had. There was something deeply sad about the situation of that man trying to connect with his own son through recipes from a wife who was no longer there to guide him. She decided she needed to understand the dynamics of that family better. The next day, while Ethan was taking his afternoon nap, Sarah went up to the attic of the house where she knew Jessica's personal belongings were kept. She found carefully organized boxes with clothes, books, and a recipe notebook with Jessica's delicate handwriting. The pages were marked with notes about introducing solid foods, homemade baby food, and nutritious meals for babies. "She really prepared herself to be a mother," murmured Sarah, flipping through the notebook. One of the recipes caught her attention. "Special pumpkin and carrot puree for my Ethan." It was exactly the description of the orange substance she had found in the bed. Jessica had left detailed instructions about consistency, mild seasonings, and even tips on how to introduce new flavors to the baby. Sarah felt her heart tighten as she imagined Andrew trying to follow those recipes alone, probably battling his own emotions with every spoonful he prepared. When Ethan woke from his nap, she decided to try a different approach. She prepared one of the purees from Jessica's notebook, carefully following the instructions and waiting for Andrew to arrive from work. "Sarah, what's that wonderful smell?" asked Andrew as he entered the kitchen. "It's Mrs. Jessica's pumpkin and carrot puree. I found her recipe notebook and thought we could try it together." Andrew's face lit up and saddened at the same time. You found her notebook?" "Yes, and everything is very well explained. Do you want to try feeding Ethan the puree?" Andrew hesitated but finally agreed. Sarah positioned Ethan in the high chair and showed Andrew how to hold the small spoon properly. "Mrs. Jessica wrote here that the first time is always an adventure," said Sarah, reading from the notebook. "She even drew a picture of a baby all messy." Andrew smiled for the first time since Sarah had met him, a genuine smile that completely transformed his expression. Ethan took the puree well, making only a small mess compared to the disaster of the previous day. Andrew managed to feed almost the entire portion, feeling proud of every spoonful his son accepted. "He liked it," said Andrew, amazed. "Yes, he did, and you did very well." That night, Andrew didn't rush off after the meal. He stayed in the kitchen helping Sarah clean up, talking about plans for the next day, and even suggesting other recipes from the notebook to try. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. In the following days, the household routine began to change subtly. Andrew started coming home earlier from work, always interested in joining Ethan's mealtimes. Sarah noticed he was genuinely trying to learn, asking questions about child development, and even buying books on parenting. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" Andrew said on a Thursday afternoon as they watched Ethan playing on the living room rug. "Of course, Mr. Andrew." "Do you have family? Children?" "No, sir. I never married. I've always worked caring for children, but never had my own." "Don't you miss it?" Sarah thought about the question. "Sometimes, but I believe everyone has their purpose in life. Mine has always been to care for other people's children, to be a sort of borrowed aunt." "Ethan is lucky to have you," Andrew said sincerely. "He's lucky to have a father who's trying to be better every day." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of an elegant woman in her 60s. Sarah immediately recognized Mrs. Margaret, Jessica's mother, and Ethan's grandmother, from the photo she always saw on the living room shelf. "Andrew, I need to speak with you," said Margaret, without even greeting Sarah. "Mrs. Margaret, you didn't tell me you were coming," replied Andrew, clearly tense. "I don't need to announce my visits to see my grandson. Sarah, would you leave us alone?" Sarah picked up Ethan and headed to the bedroom, but couldn't help overhearing part of the conversation that followed. "Andrew, I'm worried about Ethan. Yesterday I found out you were at the hospital because of a possible poisoning. This can't go on." "It was just a misunderstanding, Mrs. Margaret." "Ethan is fine." "Misunderstanding. Andrew, you don't have the experience to raise a child alone. Maybe it would be better for Ethan to stay with me for a while." Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. Margaret was suggesting that Andrew lose custody of his own son. "You can't be serious," replied Andrew, his voice trembling with indignation. "I'm very serious. Jessica made me promise I would take care of Ethan if anything happened to her, and it's clear you're not managing." "I'm his father, Mrs. Margaret." "Being a father isn't just about biology, Andrew. It's about responsibility, care, presence. You work 12 hours a day, leave my grandson with a stranger, and on top of that cause accidents that lead to hospital stays." Sarah felt offended by the word stranger, but kept listening. "Sarah isn't a stranger. She takes very good care of Ethan. A nanny, no matter how good, doesn't replace family. Ethan needs stability, real love, someone who knows his family history." "And you think I don't love my son?" There was a long pause before Margaret answered. "I think you don't know how to show love, Andrew. You're a good man, but you're lost, and while you find your way, Ethan is paying the price." "What exactly are you proposing?" "That Ethan comes to live with me for a few months. Until you get better organized, go to therapy, learn how to be a real father. I won't hand over my son to you." "Then perhaps I need to take more drastic measures." Sarah heard footsteps moving away and the front door slamming. Then she heard Andrew coming heavily up the stairs. She waited a few minutes before going downstairs with Ethan. She found Andrew sitting on the living room sofa, his head in his hands. Ethan, seeing his father in that state, reached his little arms toward him, as if wanting to offer comfort. "Mr. Andrew, is everything all right?" He lifted his head, his eyes red. "Sarah, I need to ask you something important. Do you think I'm a bad father?" "Why are you asking that?" "Mrs. Margaret wants to take Ethan to live with her. She thinks I'm not capable of taking care of him." Sarah sat on the sofa next to Andrew, Ethan playing happily on the rug at their feet. "Mr. Andrew, I've worked as a nanny for 15 years. I've taken care of children in all kinds of families, some with present parents, others with absent parents, some with lots of love, others with lots of money but little affection. And what did you see here? Here I see a man who's trying, a father who may not yet know how to show love, but who's learning, a father who prepares special meals for his son even though he doesn't know how to cook, a father who rushes to the hospital when he thinks something's wrong. But what if Mrs. Margaret is right? What if Ethan would be better off with her?" Sarah watched Ethan trying to stand up, leaning against the sofa, his little legs still wobbly but determined. "Mr. Andrew, can I tell you something I've observed these 3 months?" "Of course." "Ethan only sleeps well when you're home. On weekends, when you travel for work, he gets restless, cries more, and when you return, he calms down. That's no coincidence." Andrew looked at his son with new eyes, as if seeing this connection for the first time. "Ethan knows you're his father. He misses you. He feels your presence. That's love, even if you don't realize it. So you think I should fight to keep Ethan with me? I think you both need each other, and that with the right help, you can be the father Ethan needs." That night, Andrew made a decision. He called Dr. Roberts and scheduled an appointment to discuss psychological support options. He also decided to restructure his work schedule to spend more time with Ethan. "Sarah, would you be willing to help me, not just as a nanny, but as a kind of consultant, to teach me how to be a father?" "I would, Mr. Andrew. And about Mrs. Margaret, what do you think I should do?" "I think you should show her you're changing. Actions speak louder than words." The following week, Margaret returned for another visit, this time accompanied by a man in a suit whom Sarah didn't know. "Andrew, this is Dr. Richard Anderson, a lawyer specializing in family law," announced Margaret without preamble. Andrew paled but maintained his composure. "Mrs. Margaret, you didn't need to bring a lawyer. We can talk civilly." "I've already tried talking civilly, Andrew. Now I need to think about my grandson's well-being." Dr. Anderson, a man in his 50s with a serious appearance, looked around the house, observing every detail. "Mr. Andrew, I'd like to ask some questions about Gabriel's care routine." Sarah, who was present in the room, felt uncomfortable with the interrogatory tone of the situation. "Who is responsible for the child's daily care?" asked the lawyer. "Sarah and I, our nanny. But I've been participating more actively in recent weeks." "Can you detail this participation?" Andrew explained about the shared meals, the medical appointments, the weekends dedicated exclusively to his son. Sarah noticed he was omitting his own insecurities, trying to appear more confident than he actually felt. "And about last week's hospital incident," continued Dr. Anderson. "It was a misunderstanding. I was trying to introduce new foods into Ethan's diet, following recipes my wife had prepared." "Without medical supervision?" "The recipes were created by my wife, who was always very careful about health matters, and Dr. Roberts confirmed that no harm came to Ethan." Margaret intervened in the conversation. "Dr. Anderson, as you can see, Andrew acts impulsively without proper planning. An 8-month-old child needs specialized care, not culinary experiments." Sarah felt she needed to speak, even knowing she was risking her job. "Excuse me, may I say something?" Everyone turned to her, surprised. "I've been working with families for 15 years. I've seen parents who had a lot of money but no time. I've seen parents who knew all the theory but didn't know how to love. Mr. Andrew is learning, but he's learning with love. And that makes all the difference. And Sarah, you don't have to—" Andrew began, but she continued. "Mrs. Margaret, with all due respect, You don't see what I see every day. You don't see Mr. Andrew waking up in the middle of the night when Ethan cries. You don't see him reading parenting books late into the night. You don't see him talking to Ethan during diaper changes, telling him about his mother. Dr. Anderson took notes silently as Sarah spoke. Ethan is a happy, healthy, well-cared-for baby. He's growing up in a home where he is loved, even if that love is still learning how to show itself. Margaret looked at Sarah with an expression that mixed surprise and irritation. Sarah, you work for my son-in-law. It's natural for you to defend your own interests. My interests are Ethan's well-being. If I thought he would be better off with you, I would suggest the change myself. The silence that followed was tense. Dr. Anderson closed his notepad and looked at Margaret. Mrs. Margaret, based on what I observed today, I don't see evidence of neglect that would justify immediate legal action. I recommend a transition period with professional support. What kind of support? Asked Andrew. Psychological counseling for grief processing and parenting skills development, regular pediatrician appointments, and perhaps some visits from a social worker to assess the home environment. Margaret didn't seem satisfied with the answer, but nodded in agreement. All right, but I will be closely monitoring how this situation develops. After the visitors left, Andrew collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Sarah, thank you for speaking up for me. I only told the truth, Mr. Andrew. Do you think I'll be able to convince Mrs. Margaret that I'm a good father? Sarah looked at Ethan, who was playing happily on the floor, unaware of all the tension around him. It's not about convincing, Mr. Andrew. It's about being, and you already are. In the following days, Andrew worked even harder to show visible changes. He started working from home twice a week, actively participated in Ethan's medical appointments, and even suggested creating a photo album documenting his son's special moments. Sarah, can you teach me how to give him a proper bath? Andrew asked one Friday afternoon. Of course. Let's start by preparing everything before putting Ethan in the tub. Sarah guided Andrew through the process, from the water temperature to the correct way to hold a wet and slippery baby. Ethan loved the extra attention, splashing water and laughing when Andrew tried to wash his fine hair. He's having fun, Andrew observed, smiling. Babies can sense when we're relaxed or tense. You're relaxing, so he is too. After the bath, Andrew insisted on dressing Ethan by himself, struggling with the tiny clothes but refusing to give up. Done, he said proudly when he finally managed to button the onesie. Sarah smiled, seeing Andrew's determination. He was really making an effort to be present in his son's life in practical and tangible ways. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Andrew and Sarah talked in the kitchen about the progress they had seen. Sarah, can I ask you about your family? You never talk about them. There's not much to say. My parents passed away when I was 20. I was an only child. Since then, I've dedicated myself to my work. Did you never think about having your own family? Sarah hesitated before answering. I did, yes, but life took me down other paths. Maybe my destiny is to help other families find their way. Like you're doing with us. Like I'm trying to do. Andrew looked through the kitchen window, watching the city lights spread to the horizon. Sometimes I look at Ethan and still can't believe he's my son. Everything that happened last year feels so surreal. Grief does that to us. It makes everything kind of hazy, like we're living someone else's life. That's exactly it. Since Jessica passed, I feel like I'm playing a role, pretending to be a father, a widower, a responsible man. But you're not pretending when you take care of Ethan. That's real. Andrew reflected on Sarah's words. She was right. The moments with Ethan were the only ones where he felt genuinely like himself, not a grieving version of who he used to be. Sarah, do you think Jessica would be proud of the father I'm trying to be? The question took Sarah by surprise. She had never met Jessica personally, but through the recipes in the notebook and the photos scattered around the house, she could tell she was a woman who planned every detail with love. Mr. Andrew, I think she would be proud to see you trying. Jessica left those recipes because she knew one day you would need them. She was preparing you to take care of Ethan. Do you really think so? I'm sure. A woman doesn't leave such detailed instructions about childcare if she doesn't trust her husband will be able to follow them. This perspective had never occurred to Andrew. He always saw Jessica's notes as a painful reminder of what they lost, not as a guide purposely left to help him. That night, Andrew went up to the attic and brought down not only the recipe notebook, but also other notes Jessica had left. He found lists of first words she hoped Ethan would say, age-appropriate games, and even suggestions on how to introduce him to the extended family. "Jessica really thought of everything," murmured Andrew, flipping through the pages. A specific note caught his attention. "For Andrew, if you're reading this, it means something happened to me. Don't blame yourself. Don't feel lost. Ethan needs the father I know you can be. Trust your instincts and most of all, trust the love you feel for him. I always did." Andrew felt tears stream down his face as he read his wife's words. Jessica had anticipated exactly the feelings he was facing, and even in absence continued to be his guide. The next day, an unexpected call came. It was Dr. Roberts informing that a social worker would visit the house that week for a routine assessment. "Is it because of Mrs. Margaret?" asked Andrew. "Probably, but don't worry. It's a standard procedure in family dispute cases. The social worker just wants to observe the home dynamics and the child's well-being." Andrew immediately panicked, imagining all the scenarios where he could be judged inadequate as a father. "Sarah, the house needs to be perfect when she comes. Ethan needs to be impeccable, in a good mood, showing he's well cared for." "Mr. Andrew, calm down. The house is always clean. Ethan is always well cared for. We don't need to pretend anything. But what if she notices I don't know how to change a diaper properly, or that he sometimes cries when I'm around?" "Mr. Andrew, babies cry. Parents learn. That's normal." Even with Sarah's reassuring words, Andrew spent the following days in a constant state of anxiety, mentally reviewing all his interactions with Ethan and imagining how they might be interpreted by a professional. The social worker, Dr. Jennifer Harrison, arrived on a Tuesday morning. She was a woman in her 40s, with a professional appearance but a kind look. "Mr. Andrew, this is just a routine visit. I want to observe the home environment and the interaction between you." Dr. Jennifer spent 2 hours in the house, discreetly observing while Andrew gave Ethan breakfast, changed his diaper, and played with him on the living room rug. Sarah continued her activities normally, without trying to interfere or direct the situation. "Ethan seems like a very happy child," observed Dr. Jennifer, while the baby laughed during a game with Andrew. "He's a very good baby. Hardly any trouble," replied Andrew, clearly nervous. "And how long has Sarah been working with you?" 3 months, since my wife's accident." Dr. Jennifer made notes silently, her face revealing no obvious assessment. "Mr. Andrew, can you show me Ethan's room?" In the baby's room, Dr. Jennifer examined the organization, the safety of the furniture, the cleanliness, and the age-appropriate stimuli. Everything was impeccable, thanks to Sarah's meticulousness. "Do you follow any specific routine with Ethan?" Andrew explained the feeding, sleep, and play schedules, consulting Sarah a few times to confirm details. "And about family support. Does Ethan have contact with grandparents, uncles?" "My mother lives in Miami, so contact is more sporadic. Mrs. Margaret, Jessica's mother, visits regularly. In fact, she was the one who suggested this evaluation." Dr. Jennifer nodded with understanding. Cases of conflict between sons-in-law and mothers-in-law over grandchild custody were not uncommon in her experience. "Mr. Andrew, may I speak with Sarah privately?" Andrew became apprehensive but agreed. Dr. Jennifer and Sarah went to the kitchen while he continued playing with Ethan in the living room. "Sarah, how long have you been working as a nanny?" 15 years, doctor." "And how do you assess Ethan's development and the care he receives?" Sarah answered honestly about the baby's normal development, the healthy household routine, and the positive changes she had observed in Andrew in recent weeks. "Have you worked in similar situations before? Single parents, families in mourning?" "Yes, I have. A few times." "And how do you compare this situation with others?" Sarah thought carefully before answering. "Dr. Jennifer, I've worked in homes where there was an abundance of resources but a lack of genuine love. And I've worked in situations where there was a lot of love but a lack of technical knowledge. Here, I see a father who is learning to love and care at the same time. How so? Mr. Andrew lost his wife very early in fatherhood. He didn't have time to build confidence as a father before having to face grief. So, everything is happening simultaneously. The practical learning, the development of the emotional bond, and the processing of loss. Dr. Jennifer found Sarah's analysis insightful and well articulated. And do you think he is managing to handle all this? I think he is trying very hard. And more importantly, I see that Ethan is responding positively to these efforts. Can you give specific examples? Ethan smiles when he sees his father. He reaches out his arms to him. He calms down with his voice. These are clear signs of a healthy emotional bond. After the conversation with Sarah, Dr. Jennifer returned to the living room where Andrew was waiting anxiously. Mr. Andrew, based on what I observed today, I see no reason for concern regarding Ethan's well-being. He is a healthy, well-cared-for child, living in a safe and loving environment. Andrew sighed with relief. And about Mrs. Margaret's issue? Family custody disputes are always delicate. I will recommend that you continue the psychological follow-up you've already started, and perhaps consider family mediation to resolve the conflicts with your mother-in-law in a friendly manner. Family mediation? It's a process where a neutral professional helps families find solutions that primarily benefit the child involved. After Dr. Jennifer left, Andrew felt more confident, but still worried about the future implications of the situation with Margaret. Sarah, do you think we passed the evaluation? Mr. Andrew, it wasn't a test to pass or fail. It was just an observation of reality, and our reality is good. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. That afternoon, Andrew received an unexpected call from Margaret asking to visit them the next day. Her voice sounded different, less confrontational than usual. She must have spoken with the social worker, said Sarah. What do you think she'll want? Maybe just to talk without lawyers this time. Margaret arrived late the following afternoon, alone and with a softer expression than in previous visits. Andrew received her in the living room, with Ethan playing on the rug between them. Andrew, I spoke with Dr. Jennifer last night, began Margaret. And? She told me Ethan is well cared for, that you're trying hard to be a good father, and that Sarah is an exemplary professional. Andrew didn't know exactly how to respond, so he just nodded. I may have misjudged the situation, continued Margaret. My fear of losing Ethan, my only connection with Jessica, made me unfair to you. Mrs. Margaret, I understand you want to protect Ethan. I want that too. But maybe I can protect him in another way, by being a present, supportive grandmother instead of an adversary. Ethan, as if feeling the change of energy in the room, crawled to Margaret and leaned on her legs to stand up. She picked him up with an emotional smile. He's so big, she murmured. Jessica would be so proud seeing how he's growing up. She would, agreed Andrew. And she'd be proud to see you being such a dedicated grandmother. Andrew, can I propose something? Of course. Instead of fighting over custody of Ethan, how about we collaborate to give him the best life possible? I can help with whatever you need, offer support when necessary, but respecting your position as father. The proposal surprised Andrew. It was exactly what he had been hoping for from the beginning, but didn't know how to ask for. I'd love to have your help, Mrs. Margaret. I've learned a lot these past months, but I still have much to learn. And I have much knowledge about family history to share with Ethan when he grows up. Stories about Jessica, about how you met, about the dreams you had for him. Sarah, watching the scene from the kitchen door, felt deep emotion seeing that family finally finding a path to unity instead of division. Mrs. Margaret, said Andrew, would you like to stay for dinner? We can continue talking. I'd love to. That evening, for the first time since Sarah arrived at the house, the dinner table was occupied by a family. Not the traditional family Ethan would have known if Jessica were still alive, but a family rebuilt through love and the determination to put the child's well-being above personal differences. During dinner, Margaret shared stories about Jessica that Andrew had never heard before. Sarah noticed how these stories made him smile genuinely, connecting him with positive memories of his wife, instead of just the pain of loss. "Jessica loved cooking for you," said Margaret. "She spent hours planning special meals." "That's why she left so many written recipes," commented Andrew. "Sarah helped me understand that those were instructions for me to continue caring for Ethan the way she would have wanted. She was always very organized," laughed Margaret. "Since she was little, she made lists and plans for everything." Ethan, sitting in his high chair, joined the conversation in his own way, tapping his little hands on the tray and smiling at everyone present. After dinner, Margaret helped give Ethan a bath, sharing this intimate routine with Andrew for the first time. Sarah noticed how the grandmother's presence brought a different, yet complementary dynamic to the baby's care. "He has Jessica's eyes," said Margaret, drying Ethan after the bath. "And the little nose, too," added Andrew. "Sometimes I just look at him trying to find the little pieces of her that are still alive." "They're all there, Andrew. In the way he smiles, how he observes everything around him, how he reaches out his little hands when he wants something." When it was time for Margaret to leave, she hugged Andrew warmly for the first time since Jessica's passing. "Thank you for allowing me to be part of Ethan's life again in the right way," she said. "Thank you for giving me a chance to show that I can be the father he needs." In the following days, the household dynamics continued to improve. Margaret began making regular visits, always giving notice beforehand and always respecting Andrew's authority as a father. She brought photo albums of Jessica as a child, helping Andrew tell Ethan about his family history. "Sarah, do you think we're on the right track?" asked Andrew one afternoon, watching Ethan play with a colorful rattle that Margaret had brought. "I think you found the balance that Ethan needed. He has a present father, a caring grandmother, and a stable routine." "And he has you too," said Andrew. "You were essential in getting everything organized." Sarah smiled, but there was a thoughtful expression on her face that Andrew noticed. "Is something worrying you?" "It's not worry, Mr. Andrew. It's just, I always knew my work here would be temporary. The more you organize yourselves as a family, the less you need a full-time nanny." Sarah's observation hit Andrew like a shock. He hadn't considered the possibility of her leaving the family just when everything was falling into place. "Sarah, are you thinking about leaving?" "Not immediately, but Ethan is growing up. You're becoming more confident as a father. Mrs. Margaret can help when needed. Maybe it's time for me to start thinking about my next job. But we're a family now. You're part of our family." Sarah was touched by Andrew's words, but she knew she needed to be realistic about her role in these people's lives. "Mr. Andrew, I love you all very much. Ethan is like a son to me, and taking care of him these months has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. But my purpose is to help families reorganize after difficult times, and you've achieved that. Can't you stay at least until Ethan turns 1? "Yes, I can, but after that it might be good for you to try a more independent routine. I can keep visiting, helping when you need it, but not living here." Andrew understood the logic behind Sarah's decision, but emotionally he wasn't ready for the idea of her leaving. That evening, he spoke with Margaret about the situation. "Mrs. Margaret, Sarah is thinking about reducing her workload here in the coming months, and how do you feel about that?" "Scared," admitted Andrew. "She's been my security, my support, my teacher. I don't know if I'm ready to take care of Ethan completely on my own." "Andrew, the fact that you have these fears shows you've become a real father. Fathers worry, fathers have insecurities, fathers depend on support. That's normal. But what if I do something wrong?" "You will do things wrong. All fathers do. What's important is to learn from mistakes and keep trying." Margaret paused to reflect before continuing. "Besides, you won't be completely alone. I'll be here. Dr. Roberts will be here. And Sarah said she'll keep visiting. Ethan will have a solid support network." The following week, during a routine checkup with Dr. Roberts, the topic of transitioning care came up again. "Dr. Roberts, Sarah is thinking about reducing her involvement in Ethan's daily care. Do you think I'm ready for this?" The doctor examined Ethan, who was active, healthy, and interacting well with everyone around him. "Andrew, based on what I've observed in recent appointments, you and Ethan have developed a strong and healthy bond. You show growing confidence in basic care and, most importantly, you can identify his needs. But what if something goes wrong? Andrew, even experienced parents face unexpected situations. The important thing is to know when to seek help and have a reliable support network. You have that. Dr. Roberts paused to organize his notes. In fact, I'd say this transition could be beneficial for both of you. Ethan needs to learn to trust you primarily as his secure figure, and you need to develop full confidence in your parenting skills. Do you recommend a specific transition period? Perhaps Sarah could gradually reduce her hours over the next 2 months. Start by leaving early some days, then working only part-time until it becomes occasional visits. The idea of a gradual transition seemed more acceptable to Andrew than an abrupt change. When they got home, he shared the conversation with Sarah. Dr. Roberts suggested a gradual transition. Do you think that could work? I think it's an excellent idea. That way you can adjust little by little, and I can observe how you're doing before I completely reduce my presence. And if an emergency comes up? Mr. Andrew, you already know how to handle emergencies. Remember the scare with the bed stains? You acted quickly, sought medical help, protected Ethan. That's paternal instinct. Sarah was right. Andrew had matured significantly as a father in recent months, developing intuition and confidence he didn't have before. Then let's try it, said Andrew. But promise me that if I panic, you'll come back immediately. I promise, laughed Sarah. The transition began the following week. Sarah started leaving at 4 in the afternoon instead of staying until 8, allowing Andrew to take over Ethan's afternoon care completely. The first few days were challenging. Ethan was unsettled by the change in routine and cried more than usual in the first 2 afternoons. Andrew felt insecure, calling Sarah several times for advice on simple situations. He doesn't want to eat his puree, said Andrew during one of the calls. Is it the right time for feeding? Yes, 3:30 as always. Does he seem sick? Fever, unusual irritability. No, he seems fine, just doesn't want to open his mouth. Mr. Andrew, sometimes babies just aren't hungry at the exact time. Try again in 15 minutes. If he still refuses, don't force it. Offer water and wait. Sarah's guidance proved correct. Ethan accepted the puree 20 minutes later, eating the whole portion normally. Sarah, you were right, called Andrew, relieved. He ate everything. See? You can do it. It's a matter of trusting your instincts and your observation of his behavior. By the end of the first week of transition, Andrew already felt more secure handling everyday situations. Ethan also seemed to have adapted to the new routine, maintaining his good mood and normal development. How was the week? Asked Sarah the following Monday. Better than I imagined. I had a few moments of insecurity, but I managed to handle everything. And Ethan? Ethan adapted well. In fact, I think he even enjoyed having more time alone with me. Sarah smiled, pleased to see the evolution of the father-son relationship. Her intuition about their readiness for greater independence was being confirmed. In the second week, Sarah further reduced her presence, working only from 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. Andrew took over the morning and afternoon routines completely. It was during this week that the first real test of their new autonomy happened. Ethan woke up in the early hours of Thursday crying intensely and with a fever. Andrew didn't panic. He took his temperature, which was 101.5 degrees, gave him the fever reducer according to the medical instructions he always kept written on the fridge, and called Dr. Roberts' on-call service. Dr. Roberts, Ethan has a fever of 101.5. I already gave him the fever reducer. Should I take him to the emergency room? How is his behavior? Crying a lot? Very irritable? No, after the medicine he calmed down. He's in my lap, a bit sleepy. Keep him hydrated. Continue monitoring the temperature. If it goes over 102.2 degrees, or if he becomes very lethargic, then take him to the hospital. Otherwise, wait until tomorrow and bring him for an appointment. Andrew stayed up all night, checking on Ethan every hour. The fever gradually went down, and by morning the baby was in good spirits, with no more symptoms. When Sarah arrived at 9 and learned about the nighttime episode, she was impressed with how Andrew had handled the situation. Mr. Andrew, you did perfectly. You acted calmly, sought medical advice, monitored him properly. You couldn't have done better." "I was nervous, but I didn't panic," said Andrew, proud of himself. "That's progress. Nervousness is normal. Panic is what paralyzes." Dr. Roberts confirmed that Ethan was fine during the follow-up appointment, praising Andrew for his proper handling of the situation. "You're becoming a confident father, Andrew. That is fundamental for Ethan's healthy development." In the third week of the transition, Sarah worked only 3 days, from 9 until noon. Andrew took on almost complete responsibility for the daily care. It was that week that Ethan took his first little steps alone. Andrew was playing with him on the living room rug when the boy stood up holding onto the sofa and took 3 wobbly steps toward his father before letting himself fall into his arms. "Sarah! Sarah! Come see!" shouted Andrew, emotional. Ethan, excited by his father's reaction, tried to repeat the feat several times during the afternoon, always under Andrew's proud and attentive gaze. "Mr. Andrew, you saw your son's first steps. That is a unique moment you shared," said Sarah, also emotional. "It was magical," replied Andrew. "I'll never forget the look on his face when he realized he could walk by himself." That night, Andrew called Margaret to share the news. "Mrs. Margaret, Ethan took his first steps today. How wonderful! How was it?" Andrew described the moment in detail, his voice overflowing with paternal pride. Margaret was moved listening to the account, realizing how Andrew had transformed into the present and dedicated father that Ethan deserved. In the 4th week, Sarah worked only 2 days. Andrew already felt completely comfortable with all aspects of childcare. "Sarah, I think I'm ready," he said on a Thursday. "Ready for what?" "For you to start your transition to your next job. I feel confident taking care of Ethan alone." Sarah felt a mix of pride and nostalgia. It was rewarding to see a family reorganize and find its balance, but it was also hard to say goodbye to people who had become so important in her life. "Are you sure, Mr. Andrew?" "I am. You taught me everything I needed to know. More than that, you taught me to trust myself as a father." "And Ethan? How do you think he'll react to the change?" "Ethan knows I'm his father. He'll miss you, but I know our connection is strong enough to support him." Sarah nodded, knowing Andrew was right. The bond between father and son had solidified in a healthy and independent way. "So let's do it like this. Next week will be my last week of regular work. After that I can come visit you once a month, just to check in on how you're doing." "That would be perfect," agreed Andrew. Sarah's last week as a full-time nanny was marked by a mix of celebration and farewell. She prepared a photo album documenting Ethan's development over the past 6 months, from a dependent 8-month-old baby to a 14-month-old child walking and exploring the world. "Look how much he's changed," said Sarah, showing the photos to Andrew. "And how much I've changed too," observed Andrew. "In these first photos I looked lost, afraid to touch him. And now I know I'm the father he needs." On the last Friday, Margaret came for dinner to officially say goodbye to Sarah. The table was once again occupied by the entire extended family: Andrew, Ethan, Sarah, and Margaret. "Sarah, we can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us," said Margaret. "You don't need to thank me. Taking care of Ethan and helping this family has been a privilege. You'll always have a place at our table," said Andrew. "Our door will always be open for you." Ethan, as if understanding something special was happening, was especially affectionate during dinner, giving out smiles and hugs to everyone present. After dinner, Sarah gave Ethan his last bath as his official nanny. It was an emotional moment, full of memories from the first nervous baths with Andrew to the fun, laughter-filled baths of recent months. "Ethan, you're going to keep being a special boy, okay?" whispered Sarah as she dried the baby. "Your daddy loves you very much and will always take care of you." Ethan responded with a toothless smile and a tight hug around Sarah's neck. When it was time for Sarah to leave that Friday, everyone knew it was more than a regular goodbye. "Sarah," said Andrew, "thank you for saving our family." "Mr. Andrew, you saved yourselves. I just showed you the way." Sarah kissed Ethan on the forehead, hugged Andrew warmly, and waved to Margaret. She left the house carrying her bags and a heart full of good memories. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The first weekend without Sarah was an important test for Andrew. He planned special activities for him and Ethan, including a visit to the park and an afternoon of play at home. At the park, Andrew watched Ethan interact with other children for the first time in a more independent way. The boy walked more confidently, explored new toys, and always ran back to his father's arms when he wanted security. He's growing up so fast, thought Andrew, watching Ethan try to climb the small slide. A mother at the park commented, "Your son is very bright. How many months is he?" 14 months, Andrew replied with pride. "How you can tell he's very well cared for. Congratulations." The stranger's comment left Andrew emotional. He finally felt recognized as a competent father by outside observers. On Sunday, Margaret came for lunch, as had become routine on weekends. She brought more old photos of Jessica and spent the afternoon telling stories to Ethan, creating an important bridge between the family's past and present. "Andrew, you're handling everything very well," observed Margaret as they prepared dinner together. "I still have moments of insecurity, but I've learned to handle them without panicking. Jessica would be very proud of the father you've become. I like to think she sees me taking care of Ethan and approves of the choices I've made." During the following week, Andrew faced all the daily challenges alone. A routine doctor's appointment, Ethan rejecting vegetables during 2 meals, a sleepless night due to new teeth coming in. Each situation was resolved calmly and competently. Andrew discovered he had developed solid parental instincts and problem-solving skills he didn't know he possessed. On Wednesday, he received an unexpected call from an old co-worker of Jessica's. "Andrew, it's Rebecca. I worked with Jessica at the advertising agency. I heard you're taking care of Ethan alone and wanted to congratulate you." "Hi, Rebecca. Thank you. Jessica always talked about what a wonderful father you would be. She was absolutely certain of it." "She talked about that constantly. She said you had the patience, affection, and determination to be the father any child would want to have." The conversation left Andrew thoughtful. Jessica had seen parental qualities in him that he himself didn't recognize. This explained the confidence with which she had left the detailed childcare instructions. By the end of the second week without Sarah, Andrew realized he hadn't missed her in a paralyzing way. He did miss her, but it was a nostalgic longing, not a desperate need. Ethan also seemed to have perfectly adapted to the new routine. He remained a happy, curious, and affectionate baby, showing that his emotional security was solidly based on his relationship with his father. During Sarah's first monthly visit, 1 month after her departure, she found a completely transformed family. "Wow, how Ethan has grown!" exclaimed Sarah upon seeing the boy running around the living room. "He doesn't stay still for a second," laughed Andrew, "and he's saying a few little words, Daddy, Grandma, water. And you, how are you feeling?" "Confident," Andrew replied without hesitation. "I still have occasional doubts, but I know I can handle them." Sarah observed the interaction between father and son during her 2-hour visit. She saw complicity, mutual affection, and a healthy dynamic that didn't exist 6 months ago. "Mr. Andrew, can I say something?" "Of course." "You've become exactly the father Ethan needed. Jessica chose very well the man with whom she decided to have a child. Thank you, Sarah, for everything, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. The potential was always there. I just helped reveal it." During the visit, Ethan showed Sarah his new toys, his new skills, and his developing personality. He was clearly a happy, secure, and well-adjusted child. "He remembers me," observed Sarah, when Ethan spontaneously ran into her arms. "He always will. You are part of his story." Before leaving, Sarah left a special gift, a blank album for Andrew to document Ethan's next milestones. "So you can keep recording the special moments," she explained. In the following months, Sarah's visits became meetings between old friends. She followed Ethan's development, shared stories about her new families, and maintained a caring but non-essential presence in their lives. Andrew developed new friendships with other parents at the park, And at the music class Ethan started attending at 18 months. He created his own support network, no longer relying exclusively on Sarah or Margaret for guidance. "Andrew," said Dr. Roberts during a routine checkup, "Ethan is developing wonderfully. He's clearly a loved and well-cared-for child." "Thank you, Doctor. It's been a long journey to get here." All the best journeys are. What matters is reaching the destination. When Ethan turned 2, Andrew organized a birthday party that brought together the entire extended family. Margaret as the loving grandmother, Sarah as the heart aunt, Dr. Roberts as the friend doctor, and some new families he had met in the past year. "Look how we're all here," said Margaret, observing the house full of laughter and conversations. "Jessica would be happy seeing this," replied Andrew, holding Ethan, who was trying to reach the candles on the cake. "She would be very happy," agreed Sarah. This is exactly the family she dreamed of for Ethan. Ethan, at 2 years old, was a talkative, curious, and energetic child. He had inherited his mother's expressive eyes and his father's determined smile. More importantly, he had grown up surrounded by unconditional love that would make him confident to face any future challenge. During the party, Andrew had a moment of silent reflection. 2 years ago, he was lost, grieving, and terrified at the prospect of raising a child alone. Now he couldn't imagine life without Ethan, without the fatherhood that had become his greatest source of purpose and joy. "Daddy," said Ethan, pulling on Andrew's shirt. "Cake." "Let's sing happy birthday to you, chap," replied Andrew, picking up his son. As everyone sang happy birthday, Ethan clapped enthusiastically, looking at each face around him with a radiant smile. He was the perfect picture of a loved and happy child. After the party, when everyone had left, Andrew sat in Ethan's room watching him sleep. On the walls, photos documented every stage of growth, from the scared 8-month-old baby to the secure and joyful 2-year-old child. "Thank you," whispered Andrew, looking at a photo of Jessica on the bedside table. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for Ethan. Thank you for leaving me instructions that helped me when I needed it most." Ethan stirred slightly in the crib, whispering "Daddy" in his sleep. Andrew smiled, gently touched his son's little head, and left the room knowing that tomorrow would be another day of discoveries and adventures for the two of them. In the following months, the family's life continued to evolve naturally. Andrew successfully balanced his professional and parental responsibilities, having learned to prioritize what truly mattered. Ethan started attending a preschool twice a week, where he proved to be a sociable and adaptable child. The teachers constantly praised his upbringing and his calm temperament. "Ethan is a joy to have in the classroom," said teacher Emily during a parent-teacher meeting. "You can tell he's a child who receives a lot of love at home." "He is everything to me," replied Andrew. "I try to give him all the love and attention I can." "And you do it very well. Congratulations." During Ethan's school break, Andrew decided to travel for the first time, just the two of them, to an inn in upstate New York. It was his first adventure as a solo dad away from home. "Ethan, we're going to see a new place," explained Andrew as they packed. Ethan, now 2.5, enthusiastically participated in the preparations, choosing which toys to take and helping to organize his little clothes. The trip was a complete success. Ethan loved the inn's children's pool, the walks through the woods, and the animals from the nearby farm. Andrew discovered that he was capable of providing enriching experiences for his son without depending on anyone. "Daddy, more birdie," exclaimed Ethan upon seeing the colorful macaws in the inn's garden. "Tomorrow we'll see more birds," promised Andrew, photographing the moment to add to the growing album of memories. On the way back from the trip, they stopped to visit Sarah in her new home. She had settled into her own apartment and was caring for newborn twins for a new family. "How was the trip?" asked Sarah, greeting them with warm hugs. "It was perfect," replied Andrew. "Ethan behaved like an angel, and we had a lot of fun." "Aunt Sarah!" shouted Ethan, running to hug her. Sarah picked him up, moved to see how much he had grown and developed. "Look how talkative you are," she said, "and strong too." "Ethan missed you," said Andrew. "He asks about Aunt Sarah often." "I missed you guys too. I'm so glad you're doing well." During the visit, Sarah observed the father-son dynamic that had solidified. Andrew showed complete confidence in his parenting skills, and Ethan displayed a deep and healthy connection with his father. "Mr. Andrew, may I say you've exceeded all my expectations. Ethan is a wonderful child, and that directly reflects the quality of care he receives." "Thank you, Sarah. Sometimes I still can't believe we've come this far. You made it because there was genuine love from the start. Love sometimes needs time and guidance to manifest properly, but it was always there." When Ethan turned 3, Andrew organized an even more special party. This time, Ethan could actively participate in the planning, choosing the theme, dinosaurs, helping to make invitations, and even suggesting which foods he'd like to serve to the guests. "Daddy, big dinosaur on the cake," said Ethan, gesturing excitedly. "Let's see what we can do," laughed Andrew. The party was an absolute success. Ethan confidently interacted with all the children and adults present, demonstrating the healthy social skills he had developed. During the party, Margaret pulled Andrew aside for a private conversation. "Andrew, looking at Ethan today, seeing how happy and secure he is, I need to apologize again for the doubts I had about your ability as a father. Mrs. Margaret, there's no need to apologize. You were protecting Ethan the only way you knew how at the time, but I was wrong. You've proven to be exactly the father Jessica always said you would be." "We've all learned and grown over these 3 years," said Andrew. "What matters is where we've ended up." "We've ended up with a solid, united and loving family," agreed Margaret. At the end of the party, when Ethan was asleep after a day full of emotions, Andrew sat in the living room flipping through the photo albums documenting their journey, from the first tense photos at the hospital to the joyful images of the 3rd birthday party. A complete transformation was visible. Not just Ethan's growth, but Andrew's evolution as a father and person. The phone rang, interrupting his reflections. It was a call from the office about an important project. "Andrew, we would need you to travel next week for a presentation in Washington," said his partner. "Which day specifically?" "Thursday. It's a meeting that could secure a very important contract." Andrew thought quickly. Thursday was the day he always took Ethan to the park, and afterward they had lunch together. It was a tradition they had created, and Ethan always looked forward to it eagerly. "May I suggest rescheduling it for Friday, or sending someone else from the team in my place? On Thursday, I have an important commitment with my son." 3 years ago, Andrew would never have prioritized a commitment with Ethan over a business opportunity. Now he didn't even hesitate to make that choice. "Of course, Andrew. We'll reschedule or send someone else. Family comes first." After hanging up, Andrew smiled to himself. He had found the perfect balance between his professional and parental responsibilities, always putting Ethan first when necessary. That night before bed, Andrew wrote in his personal journal, a habit he had developed to document thoughts about fatherhood. Today, Ethan turned 3. Looking back, I see it wasn't just Ethan and I who grew. We were an entire family that learned to love each other in ways we never imagined possible. Sarah was our bridge between chaos and harmony. Margaret became the loving grandmother Ethan deserves. And I became the father Jessica always believed I could be. Ethan is a happy, secure, curious and lively child. When I look at him, I no longer see the shadow of the loss we carried, but the light of the future we built together. Jessica would be proud not only of the boy Ethan has become, but of the family we managed to be. Tomorrow will be another day of adventures for the two of us. More stories to tell, more memories to create, more love to share. And I couldn't be more grateful for this life we learned to live together. Andrew closed the journal, took one last look at Jessica's photo on the nightstand and whispered, "Thank you for Ethan. Thank you for teaching me that love can grow even in the midst of pain. Thank you for trusting us." In the following years, Andrew and Ethan's life continued to flourish. Ethan became an even more communicative and affectionate child, always surrounded by his father's unconditional love and the constant presence of grandmother Margaret and Aunt by Heart Sarah. When Ethan turned 5, he started regular school. On the first day of class, Andrew felt the same mix of pride and nostalgia that all parents experience when seeing their children grow up. "Daddy, will you pick me up? asked Ethan, adjusting his new backpack. "I'll be right here waiting when you get out," promised Andrew, "and I want to know everything about your first day." "Everything, everything, everything, everything." Ethan smiled and ran to join the other children, waving to Andrew before entering the school building. Andrew kept watching until Ethan disappeared from view, his heart full of emotion. He had managed to raise a confident boy who wasn't afraid to explore the world because he knew he'd always have a safe home to return to. Ethan's teacher soon noticed his special qualities. "Mr. Andrew, Ethan is an exceptionally well-adjusted child," said Teacher Rachel during the first parent-teacher meeting. "He's kind to his classmates, respectful to adults, and shows admirable emotional maturity." "I'm very happy to hear that," replied Andrew. "I always tried to teach him about respect and empathy, and you succeeded very well. Ethan is a child who clearly receives lots of love at home." During the first school year, Ethan made many friends and excelled both academically and socially. Andrew actively participated in his son's school life, attending all presentations, meetings, and events. "Daddy, did you see my presentation about dinosaurs?" asked Ethan after a school presentation. "I saw everything. You explained the different types of dinosaurs very well. I'm very proud. The teacher said I can do another presentation next month about planets. How cool. Let's research the planets together." This study partnership became another special tradition between father and son. Andrew discovered he loved learning new things together with Ethan, exploring curiosities and discoveries. When Ethan turned 6, Andrew decided it was time for an important conversation about his mother. "Ethan, do you have any memories of Mommy?" asked Andrew on a quiet afternoon. "I can't remember her face," said Ethan thoughtfully, "but sometimes I feel like she's nearby, especially when you cook those special recipes. Mommy loved you very much, Ethan. She spent the last months before you were born preparing special things for you." "Like what?" "Like the recipes we make together, like the lullabies I sing to help you sleep, like the storybooks we read every night." Ethan processed this information with the seriousness that only children can have. "Daddy, do you think Mommy likes me the way I am now?" "Ethan, I'm absolutely sure that Mommy loves you exactly the way you are. You're smart, affectionate, funny, and brave. You're everything she dreamed you would be." "And you, Daddy? Do you like being my dad?" Andrew felt his eyes fill with emotional tears. "Ethan, being your father is the best thing that has ever happened in my life. You taught me what real love is." Ethan hugged Andrew tightly, and they stayed like that for a few minutes, father and son united by the love that had overcome all difficulties. That night, Andrew updated his journal. "Today I talked with Ethan about Jessica, for the first time in a deeper way. I was surprised by his maturity and how he can understand complex concepts like longing and love that continues to exist even in physical absence. Ethan doesn't resent not having a present mother. He understands that he has a family different from most, but that it's no less special because of that. This makes me incredibly proud of the way we've managed to build our reality. I feel that Jessica would be amazed by the boy Ethan has become, and more than that, she would be proud of the family we've managed to be, even without her physically present." At 7 years old, Ethan surprised Andrew with an unexpected question. "Daddy, are you happy?" "What do you mean, Ethan?" "You smile a lot with me, but sometimes when you think I'm not looking, you have a sad face. Are you really happy?" The question revealed how observant and empathetic Ethan was, qualities he had inherited from his mother and developed through his father's loving care. "Ethan, sometimes I miss Mommy. That makes me a little sad sometimes, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy. I'm very, very happy to have you. And if you find someone else to love, will I still be important?" Andrew realized that Ethan had thought about complex issues that he himself hadn't fully considered. "Ethan, you will always be the most important person in my life, no matter what happens, no matter who else comes into our life. You're my son, and that will never change." "But could you like having someone to talk to about adult things?" The child's wisdom surprised Andrew. Ethan was signaling that he would understand if his father wanted to rebuild his love life. "Maybe one day, Ethan, but only if it's someone who really likes you too. and only if you feel comfortable." "Okay," said Ethan, satisfied with the answer. "But she has to like dinosaurs." Andrew laughed, hugging his son. Even in serious conversations, Ethan could bring lightness with his unique personality. A few months later, during a birthday party for one of Ethan's school friends, Andrew met Emily, the mother of one of his son's friends. She was an art teacher, 32 years old, and also single. "You're Ethan's dad, right?" asked Emily during the party. "My daughter Olivia talks about him a lot. She says he's very kind and funny." "Ethan really likes Olivia," replied Andrew. "He always says she draws the coolest dinosaurs in the class." The conversation flowed naturally, and Andrew felt comfortable talking with Emily. She showed genuine interest in getting to know more about Ethan and didn't try to flirt inappropriately considering the setting. "Emily, it would be nice to schedule a play date for the kids," suggested Andrew. "Ethan would love to play with Olivia outside of school." "Great idea. Can I give you my number?" In the following weeks, Andrew and Emily spoke a few times to organize activities for the kids. Gradually, they began talking about other subjects too, discovering shared interests and common ground. "Ethan," Andrew said one afternoon, "remember when you talked about me meeting someone special?" "I remember. Olivia's mom, Emily, is a really nice person. Would you mind if I spent more time getting to know her?" Ethan thought seriously before answering. "Does she like dinosaurs?" "I don't know yet." "Can I ask her?" "Ask, and if she likes them, it's okay." Andrew laughed at the simplicity of Ethan's answer, but understood his son was giving him permission to explore a potential new relationship. At their next meeting with Emily, Andrew couldn't resist asking the essential question. "Emily, can I ask you something important?" "Of course. Do you like dinosaurs?" Emily laughed, intrigued by the seemingly random question. "I love dinosaurs. In fact, I'm planning a paleontology-themed art exhibition at the school." "Why?" "Ethan decided that anyone important in my life has to like dinosaurs." "Ethan is a very wise boy then," Emily smiled, "and with excellent selection criteria." Gradually, Andrew and Emily began to know each other better. She proved to be a caring, intelligent person with a healthy relationship with her own daughter, Olivia. More importantly to Andrew, Emily showed genuine interest in getting to know Ethan and respect for the family dynamic he had built. "Andrew, can I say something?" Emily asked after a few weeks of spending time together. "Of course. It's beautiful to see the relationship you have. Ethan is an incredibly well-raised child, and that reflects directly on you as a father." "Thank you. He really is special." "And so are you. I don't know many men who could raise a child alone the wonderful way you have." The compliment touched Andrew deeply, as it came from someone who had observed his parenting closely and without ulterior motives. After 3 months of growing closeness, Andrew decided to formally introduce Emily to Margaret and Sarah during a Sunday lunch. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Emily," Andrew said when they were all gathered. "She's a very special person who's been part of our life recently." Margaret watched Emily carefully, assessing how she interacted with Ethan and whether she showed respect for Jessica's memory. Sarah, with her experience in family dynamics, immediately noticed that Emily wasn't trying to take the place of Ethan's mother, but rather creating her own space in the family respectfully. "Emily, it's nice to meet you," said Margaret. "Ethan talks a lot about you and Olivia." "It's a pleasure to meet you all too," Emily replied. "Ethan is a wonderful child. Andrew must be very proud." "We're all very proud of him," Sarah said, "and it's good to see special people becoming part of his life." During lunch, Emily was natural and authentic, without trying to impress or force situations. She talked with Ethan about his interests, asked respectful questions about the family history, and showed appreciation for the support structure Andrew had built. At the end of the gathering, Margaret pulled Andrew aside for a private conversation. "Andrew, Emily seems like a genuinely good person." "That's what I feel too. And more importantly, she understands she's not trying to replace Jessica, but rather add something positive to your lives." "Exactly. She never tries to compete with Jessica's memory or position herself as Ethan's mother. That's very important. Ethan needs to understand he can love new people without betraying the memory of the mother he never knew. Sarah also expressed approval of the new relationship. Mr. Andrew, Emily has a very good energy, and most importantly, Ethan feels comfortable with her. How do you notice that? Ethan doesn't change his behavior when she's around. He continues being himself, spontaneous and happy. That means he sees her as a positive presence, not threatening. With the extended family's approval, Andrew felt more confident to develop his relationship with Emily at a natural and healthy pace. After 6 months of dating, Emily and Olivia started participating more regularly in the family's weekend activities. Ethan and Olivia became great friends, and Emily integrated harmoniously into the family dynamic. "Daddy," said Ethan one night, "you're happier now." "How so?" "You smile differently when Emily is here. A more complete smile." Ethan's observation showed how much he had emotionally matured and developed the ability to notice subtleties in adults' feelings. "Ethan, do you like Emily?" "I do. She's nice to me and Olivia, and she really likes dinosaurs. She wasn't pretending." "How do you know?" "'Cause she knows scientific names even you didn't know," laughed Ethan. Andrew realized Emily had passed the most important test, Ethan's genuine approval. During school break, Andrew suggested a family trip. Him, Ethan, Emily, and Olivia to the beach. It would be the first real test of how they would work as an extended family unit. "Ethan, would you like to travel to the beach with Emily and Olivia?" "Can I bring my new bodyboard?" "Of course. And can we make giant sandcastles?" "We can make sandcastles as big as you want." "Then I want to go." The trip was an important milestone in the family's evolution. Ethan and Olivia had fun together. Emily showed natural ability to handle 2 children simultaneously, and Andrew felt genuinely happy for the first time in years. "Andrew," said Emily one night while the children slept, "thank you for allowing me to be part of your lives." "Thank you for wanting to be part of it. Ethan is an amazing child. Jessica must have been a very special person to have planned so carefully how he would be raised." It was the first time Emily mentioned Jessica directly, showing she didn't see Andrew's first wife as a threat, but rather as an important part of the family history. "Jessica really was special, and she would have liked you very much." "How can you be so sure?" "Because she wanted Ethan to be surrounded by people who truly love him, and that's what you do." After returning from the trip, Ethan surprised Andrew with a spontaneous statement. "Daddy, our family is getting bigger and more fun. Do you like that?" "I do, but you're still my favorite dad." "I'm your only dad, Ethan," laughed Andrew. "That's why you're the favorite." Ethan's childlike logic brought lightness and joy to the whole family, confirming the transition was happening naturally and healthily. After 1 year of serious dating, Andrew and Emily started talking about the possibility of living together. It was an important decision that needed to be made, mainly considering the children's well-being. "Ethan," said Andrew in a serious conversation, "how would you feel if Emily and Olivia came to live with us?" Ethan thought carefully before answering, showing the maturity he had developed over the years. "I'd like that, but our house is kind of small for 4 people. What if we moved to a bigger house? A house that would be ours, but also theirs? With more bedrooms? With more bedrooms, and a big backyard to play in, and a big backyard to play in. Then I want to." Olivia showed similar enthusiasm when Emily had the same conversation with her. The 2 children were ready to officially become siblings. Over the following months, Andrew and Emily searched for a house that could comfortably accommodate their expanded family. They wanted a space where everyone would feel at home, not like visitors. They found the perfect house: 4 bedrooms, a large backyard, a study area for the children, and a studio where Emily could work on her art projects. "Ethan, what do you think?" Andrew asked when they visited the house for the first time. Ethan ran through all the rooms, exploring every corner with contagious enthusiasm. "Daddy, can this room be mine?" he asked, pointing to a room with a window overlooking the backyard. "Of course it can." "And can Olivia have the room next door so we can talk through the window?" Emily smiled to see how Ethan was including Olivia in all his plans for the new house. "Ethan, are you sure you want Olivia as your adoptive sister?" Emily asked. "I'm sure, but she'll have to like dinosaurs forever." I think we can guarantee that, Emily laughed. Moving into the new house marked the official start of a new family phase. Ethan and Olivia adapted quickly, creating shared routines and developing a genuine sibling relationship. Andrew, Sarah said during a visit to the new house, looking at you now, I see a completely fulfilled family. It was a long road to get here, but every step was worth it. Ethan now has not only a wonderful father, but also a caring mother figure and a fun sister. And I have a family I never imagined I could have. Jessica would be very happy to see this, Sarah said. This is exactly the life full of love she dreamed of for Ethan. 2 weeks after the move, during dinner, Ethan asked a question that surprised everyone. Emily, are you going to be my current mom now? Emily looked at Andrew before answering, wanting to be sure how to approach the question. Ethan, I would love to care for you like a mother does, but you already had a mother who loved you very much, even if you don't remember her. So can you be my current mom? Ethan's wording showed his ability to understand that he could honor Jessica's memory while making room for Emily in his life. I would love to be your current mom, Emily replied, moved. And will Olivia be my current sister? Olivia is already your current sister, Emily laughed. Great, now our family is complete. For Ethan, at 8 years old, the matter was settled with the simplicity that only children can apply to complex situations. He had defined his family structure in a way that made sense to him and included love for everyone involved. That night, Andrew updated his journal for the last time. Today, Ethan made our family official in the purest way possible. He understood that he can love Emily as his current mom without disrespecting the memory of Jessica as his first mom. He understood that Olivia is his current sister and that our house is the home of a family rebuilt by love. Looking back, I see that it all started with a simple orange stain on a bed and a brave nanny who didn't hesitate to seek help. Sarah saved us not only that day, but throughout all the months when she taught us how to be a family. Jessica, wherever you are, I want you to know that we made it. Ethan has become the wonderful boy you dreamed of. He is loved, happy, secure, and surrounded by people who would give their lives for him. Your recipe worked, not just the pumpkin baby food, but the recipe of love that you left written in every detail of his care. Thank you for leaving me instructions. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for Ethan. Our family is proof that love always finds a way to flourish, even in the most difficult circumstances. 2 years later, when Ethan turned 10, the family organized a party that brought together everyone who had been part of his journey. Margaret as the proud grandmother, Sarah as the aunt of the heart who made it all possible, Dr. Roberts as the friendly doctor, Emily as the dedicated current mother, Olivia as the beloved sister, and Andrew as the father who learned that love can overcome any obstacle. During the party, Ethan climbed onto a chair to give a speech. I want to thank all the people who helped me have the best family in the world, he said, with the seriousness he always showed in important moments. Grandma Margaret, thank you for taking care of me and for telling me stories about my first mother. Aunt Sarah, thank you for teaching Daddy to be the best father in the world. Dr. Roberts, thank you for always taking care of my health. Emily, thank you for being my current mother and loving me as your own son. Olivia, thank you for being the coolest sister anyone could have. Ethan paused, took a deep breath, and continued. And Daddy, thank you for never giving up on me, even when it was hard. Thank you for loving me so much that you managed to learn everything you needed to take care of me. You're the best father any child could have. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when Ethan finished his speech. He had summarized, with the clarity that only children possess, the entire journey of love and overcoming that the family had gone through together. Ethan, said Andrew, picking up his son in his arms, thank you for teaching me what unconditional love is. Thank you for giving me such a special family, replied Ethan, hugging his father. That night, after all the guests had left and the children were asleep, Andrew and Emily talked on the porch of their house. Andrew, you achieved something extraordinary, said Emily. We did. All of us did it together. Ethan is proof that love can overcome any difficulty. Yes, and that families can be built in many different ways from the traditional one, but with the same result. Happy, secure children full of love. Jessica would be so proud of you. I'm sure she is. And I'm sure she approves of our family as it is today. Andrew looked through the window of the room where Ethan was sleeping soundly, surrounded by toys and books that documented a happy and well-cared-for childhood. You know, Emily, that morning 5 years ago, when Sarah found the orange stains on the bed and called the hospital, I never imagined that moment of panic would become the beginning of our family. The best stories start with scares that turn into blessings, said Emily, taking Andrew's hand. Our story is definitely proof of that. Ethan, at 10 years old, was a confident, affectionate, intelligent child surrounded by a family that loved him unconditionally. He had grown up knowing that he was deeply wanted and cared for by people who chose to be in his life. The pumpkin puree that had caused so much fear years ago had become one of the family's favorite recipes, prepared regularly on Sundays as a tradition that connected the past to the present in a sweet and loving way. Sarah continued to visit monthly, following Ethan's growth and taking pride in the family she had helped form. Margaret was a present and caring grandmother, ensuring that Ethan knew his family history and felt connected to his roots. Dr. Roberts remained the family's doctor and friend, witnessing the healthy development of a child who could have grown up in much more difficult circumstances. Andrew had become not only the father that Ethan needed, but also the husband that Emily deserved, and the man that Jessica always knew he could be. End of story. And now, dear listeners, we'd really love to know what you thought of this story of overcoming and love. Do you believe that true love can overcome any difficulty? Have you ever been through situations where you needed to learn to love in different ways? Leave your comments and experiences, because we love to know how our stories touch you. Don't forget to leave a like to help our channel and subscribe, so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one. Thank you so much for your company.